this is where you can get a hold of me. I don't want you to drink from the fire hose. We're going to be talking about a number of things this evening, basically. This is to get you started on a journey. And I'm going to tell you this, whenever you have a question, get a hold of me. I'll be more than happy, basically, to continue that conversation. I do that quite a bit. As a matter of fact, about 6 weeks ago, I'm sitting at home on a Friday at 9:30 in the evening and my cell phone rings. And I look at the number and it looks like my son's Matt's number. So I answered, hello? Hello, hey. I heard a gasp. On the other side, he says, oh my God, you're still alive. And I said, pardon me? He said, oh, wait, Mr. Arnold, I met you about 12 years ago at United High School in Uniontown in Columbiana County. And I said, oh yeah, we were talking about oil and gas leasing up there in Anschutz leases. He said, oh my God, yeah, you're right. I now have a question. I'm going, okay. He said, you'll have to excuse me because I finally found my notes from that meeting and I found your card. I was just going to see if your number was still active and just leave you a message. And I said, oh shoot. It's only 9:30 on Friday night. What's your question? And we talked to about midnight. So I'm not guaranteeing when you call at 9:30 on Friday night I'm going to answer the phone, but I can talk to just about anybody. When you talk about Farm Bureau is a member organization. You might think of us as doing what a lot of chambers of commerce do for folks living in towns and villages. When we talk about our member organization, I help a lot of farmers, rural residents, local governments, township trustees, county commissioners with regard to that. When it comes to energy development, so I've been with the Ohio Farm Bureau for 40 years. The vast majority of that time basically is in energy development I'm at right now. And so I've done a lot of things with regard to oil and gas exploration, pipelines, transmission lines, wind, solar, biomass, fuel cell, on-site generation, FERC, NERC, PJM, the Ohio Power Siting Board, utility tariffs, you name it. I've done it and continue to do so. I don't work for a federal agency. I don't work for local government. I don't work for an energy service provider. I don't work for a power company. And so I'm known basically as a valid third opinion. And that's what I do. Also, we have kind of a unique policy perspective because we have members on both sides of the issue. I work with farmers basically that need power generation, see with regard to that, take a look at accommodating a number of new technologies coming across basically their ground. And I have other people who worry about wind, who worry about soil and water conservation, aesthetics, community development, and rightfully so. And I help both of them. But somebody asked me, are you for or against a particular project? I tell them, I'm neither for or against a project because you as a community are going to have to make a number of decisions. That's what we're going to be talking about this evening with regard to that. I'm the person, basically, I tell you this, we advocate and support the process with the Power Siting Board, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and now a number of things with regard to local government. Township trustees and county commissioners are being conferred, or I'd like to say compelled, to take a look at power siting. You're going to find out, too, that many decisions having to do with energy development from this point forward, or since 1999 when the law changed, are going to be made in rooms this size. Congratulations, welcome aboard. I'm glad you're here because you're all involved in that decision-making process because that's the way it's designed in the scope of what's going to do. I help people on both sides of the issue get at the table, advocate their position, work with a number of folks because we're all finding out this when it comes to energy development. It's not black or white. It's not yes or no. It's collaboration. Because I'm going to tell you this, energy development is not a popularity contest. It's not a dictatorship either. Because if it was, we'd all be sitting in the cold and in the dark very, very quickly. That's what's going on with regard to this. And I guess I'll say is that when I walk into a hearing room or a meeting room or whatever, half the people there see me as a guardian angel and the other half see me as the devil incarnate. I know I'm doing my job. That's what's going on. But this is me. Okay? Yeah, you've done a lot down through here. I've been here in Yellow Springs several times over the last 10 to 15 years having to do with pipelines, transmission line development, solar of all different shapes and sizes. What you have learned and what you've experienced when you talk about solar, utility scale, community scale, which I'll talk about in a minute, on site, what you learn working with each other is going to serve you extremely well when you see other types of energy generation, transmission, and local distribution development hitting Greene County. That's what's going on, because you're going to see a number of these. If you're relying on very large centralized coal or nuclear fire generation capacity, I need to tell you this, the fleet is gone. As a matter of fact, this is a picture of Conesville Generating Station near Conesville, Ohio, in Coshocton County. That was the flagship of AEP's generation fleet. It went online, it was one of the youngest plants, it went online before I was born. We've gone from about 27 of those in the Appalachian Plateau and in the Ohio River Basin down to 3. 2 will be decommissioned by 2025, leaving 1. What's replacing them? You're seeing a lot of natural gas-fired turbine generation. You're going to see 47 of those projects being built and developed. They're in eastern Ohio right now, and they're moving to positions further west. Will you see some of that here? It all depends on what kind of discussions you do, what plans you put in place, what policies go forward, a number of things with regard to that. You're hearing a lot about energy storage. Flint Solar, basically, that's a picture of that. That went operational 2 years ago near the Intel site near New Albany, Ohio, in Licking County, 10 minutes from where I live. There are 12 of those sited. You're going to be seeing a lot with regard to battery backup systems. One of the oldest operations in the United States is at Minster, Ohio, along I-75. That's a municipal electric company. They decided basically to go into that technology 12 years ago. And consequently, to have a solar array that energizes basically the battery backup system and provides baseload generation for every house in Minster, Ohio. They still rely on power generation from AES, or Dayton Power and Light, for their industrial park and their capacity there, but that's a start basically with them. Those are the decisions what they have made. You're going to be seeing a lot about regard to mining. Coal mining? Probably not, but you're hearing a lot about batteries. You're hearing a lot about lithium. You're hearing a lot about rare earths. I started working with developers and talking with folks 15 years ago on this because they found this out. Science showed them that, and you have developers taking a look at this right now here in Ohio. They're saying, you know, Mr. Arnold, science has shown us there's a coal seam. The rare earths, the lithium and rare earths that we need for batteries and different things, were just above it and just below it. Oh, and so you're taking a look as a matter of public record where those were, where they were permitted in the state, and you're looking for every slag heap and every waste coal product from every mine basically in southeastern Ohio. And they said, yes, you're correct. I'm working with folks there where mining basically was retired 25, 30, 40 years ago, and this is coming in its place. Also, too, you're seeing here a filtration system. They're saying this. We have a lot of strip mines, a lot of water, a lot of acid runoff coming from them. That's rich with lithium and other rare earths. We're talking about impoundments. We're talking about lakes. You're talking about filtration systems. That's what they're taking a look over there to have those rare earths and that material going forward. You see things with regard to wind. You see things with regard to solar. Biomass. Yeah, I work a lot with folks in biomass. I have some folks basically I give fits to because to me it's a biomass reactor. It's a living, breathing, 50-ton infant. I tell a lot of folks who want to accommodate that basically on farm ground on both sides of the issue, You know, if you're going to do this correctly, you're going to have to treat it. You're going to have to keep it clean. You're going to have to keep it warm. You're going to have to keep it well fed. Because if you don't, it's going to get sick and it's going to die, and you are going to have a mess. And you've seen several of those, one within a few minutes of here happen. That is very predictable. What I need to tell you is this: there are several others within an hour's drive of here that have been running and operational for over 25 years, and you've never seen them or never noticed them because they're run properly. Is that something you're going to explore and take a look at? The answer basically is yes, in some way, shape, or form. You're going to see transmission refits. There are 47 of those cases, the power sighting board right now. You're going to see local distribution circuits with your rural electric cooperatives, as well as with AES, AEP, and First Energy. You're going to be asked to take a look at a number of particular things. I sit on AEP's development board. That meter there is no longer the analog meter that was on your house in the 20th century. It's now a digital two-way communication device, and it's been switched out over the last 7 years. They're going to be talking to you about managing your electric costs and electric rates. They're going to be talking about investing in appliances in your home, your farm, your business that have VG chips that literally talk to each other in a wireless network and talk on a laptop on your kitchen counter, and you can program it on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis to manage the load and the cost of your generation in your home. How do people feel about that? Over 250,000 of those were installed in Northeast Columbus in the interconnection district there 7 years ago. And guess what? People hated it. Why? If you think about it, the average age of a customer in that part of AEP service territory is 57 years old. I'm 64. I'm going to also tell you this. I work with this technology on a daily basis. Heck, I can't even tune my TV box on my cables change yet. What do? I get my grandson. He's 14 years old. His name is Augustine. I call him Augie. I'll say, I'll give you a Snickers bar. Come over and fix Grandpa's TV set again. His generation understands and appreciates that. Ours doesn't. AEP asked me, why in the name of God are people so up in arms about this? I said, how much education, how much outreach, how much community awareness, how much discussion did you do with them with regard to this? You just presented them and say, here, do this. You saw that with developers here. We're coming. We're really nice. We're the hottest thing since sliced bread. Just do it. You have a lot of questions, issues, and concerns that need to be addressed because you live here. You have neighbors here. This company is going to be your neighbor in some way, shape, or form. You're seeing a number of things happening with regard to that. That's why we're here, and that's why you're being asked to be part of this particular process. Okay? I also need to tell you this. This is local electricity. Local electricity isn't Yellow Springs. It isn't Miami Township. It isn't Greene County. This is a picture of the PJM Interconnection Network. PJM stands for Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland Interconnection Network. Why is it called that? Because that's where this collection, this network of transmission lines and power generation assets started about this time in the 20th century. And it's branched out from there, from the Carolinas to Chicago. Every public utility, every independent service provider, every transmission system and generation system basically delivering to customers in any grade classification is involved with that. It's gotten to be the point when we talk about, this is a picture of Missile Command in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Before 9/11, I used to take farmers over there and give them a tour. After 9/11, there are 4 guys with Uzi machine guns as guards. It's a vital services place with regard to national security. But I'm going to tell you this, what's interesting is given the time of day, what's in the bulletin board, given basically what electricity is going through to put that light on, I could probably tell you where the source is. It could be anywhere from hydroelectric with Niagara Mohawk, along Niagara Falls. It could be a solar or wind project. It could be a power generation station. It could be nuclear from eastern Pennsylvania. That's how power is marketed. How do I know that? I used to do that in my younger days. Energy is a commodity. It's bought and sold on a daily basis. All those particular things come into play. As a matter of fact, let me show you this. As I said, energy is a commodity. These are technical analysis charts basically for natural gas, crude oil, and electric generation. I could talk about this chart for the next 2 hours, but believe me, I won't. But what I need to tell you is this: these are prices with regard to that. You know, I got one word to describe it. It's called volatility. It's like a cedar pole roller coaster. The focus is trying basically to put concepts, technologies, systems, plans in place to balance that out, to not make it so volatile, to help give you some portions or help give you some controlling on how to control that portion of your particular bill. Farmers really get it. Why? Because we're in a commodity-intensive business with corn, wheat, beans, fuels, fertilizer. Most of our inputs and most of the things we produce, prices are determined with regard to supply and demand over time in commodity exchanges. Everything farmers around here deliver to the local grain elevator, everything is indexed to the Chicago Mercantile and Chicago Board and Trade on a daily basis on pricing. It helps them with risk management. It helps them put together pricing scenarios. It helps them put together fluidity in the market. These commodities are traded the same way: calls, puts, collars, futures contracts, trade arbitration, delivery points, everything indexed not to Chicago, but the New York Mercantile Exchange, where they've been traded for over a century. You're working basically with folks who generate, sell, and deliver energy as a commodity. Generation is no longer a vital services as it was in the 20th century. It's a commodity. Merchant, function, rule, and process governs its development, which also means this: since it's merchant function, eminent domain provisions do not apply. Never have, never will. When an energy service provider comes to talk to you here about developing a project someplace in Greene County or Yellow Springs, you're going to find out that your ability to negotiate a number of key processes, your ability to create strategic partnerships, your ability basically to negotiate stipulations and agreements based on the needs, wants, and desires of your community are much better than what you think. And welcome to power siting, because let me tell you this: when you're talking about power siting, shoot. This is an energy generation facility. They're going to tell you, you don't need to worry about power siting because we're going to follow the rules put together by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the North American Electric Reliability Council, and PJM Interconnection, and we're going to put it right there in that field. That's on their side of the fence. What about on your side of the fence? This is only about 30% of power siting. The other 70% you're going to be involved in. Aesthetics, setbacks, environmental control, soil and water conservation, community development, taxes. There's a number of things that local communities will be involved with in that process. Welcome to power siting. 70% of those are not about twisting wires and doing technical work with FERC, NERC, and PJM. It's about what is the strategic partnership, what is going to be basically the plan, what's going to be the policy, what's going to be the ordinances, what are going to be the stipulations, How is this community and how are we going to benefit? Your community is as unique as a fingerprint. You've made it that way. And power siting that way gives you the ability basically to do that. When you're talking with an energy service provider who says, oh, we can't do that for you, we're not doing that for anybody else, 2 words to remember in that meeting. Meeting over. Welcome to power siting. That's what's going on. And it's been that way for over 25 years when the law changed in 1997, 98, and 99. Welcome for being here. Okay? Let's keep going. I'm going to be very brief on this. 3 different types of energy development, 3 different types of solar. Utility scale projects are 50 megawatts in capacity or above. If that's the case, then it's governed by the Ohio Power Siting Board. It's rather unique here in Ohio. I want you to think about this as a judicial process, a court of law. The Ohio Power Siting Board is that part of the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio that since the early 1960s has power and authority in all types of transmission, pipeline development, and especially power generation. Okay? It coordinates technical, environmental, social, economic, aesthetic, decommissioning, bonding, conflict resolution. All that comes under their bailiwick. It supersedes local government authority. It's a uniform system of rule, regulation, process, and law applicable in all 88 counties and all 1,500 plus townships. Do you have a part of that? As a township trustee and a county commissioner, you do. Right of intervention is part of that. I worked with a number of your folks down here in about 57 different power siting cases because they became parties of record and organized basically to advocate their position with the Power Siting Board, and you're nodding your head, so you must know that works. Okay? That's part of that process. Okay? Now then, let's go with this one. Other end of the spectrum, and you have a lot of people around here doing this, is because you have what are called on-site projects. That's kilowatt level on your rooftop up to 5 megawatts in size. Who has governance on that? Basically, when you talk about on-site generation, it's between one individual customer and the incumbent public utility. And the governing document is an interconnection agreement. The interconnection agreement is a project that is signed by both parties. It talks about all the technical, aesthetic, economic, safety provisions to have something on your rooftop, in your backyard, or a large power facility on your real estate on site to help you control part of your generation costs. The verbiage of that letter is an approved tariff with the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. There's over 60,000 of those agreements throughout counties and townships. Everyone from rooftop solar to larger companies, several of them around here in industrial parks, who have up to 4.9 megawatt systems in place to help them control their energy costs. That's there. If you're a township trustee, and if you do have zoning, do you also have a say in that? The answer is yes. I did a lot of work basically with a lot of your counterparts in UCLA. You know what UCLA is? Upper Canton, Lower Akron, where this was very, very prevalent 20 years ago. You'd have the right and the ability through zoning to have additional precepts put on interconnection agreements. Setbacks, placement, aesthetics, safety inspection, decommissioning once that particular system gets too old to run and you don't want it abandoned or orphaned. And I've worked with a number of your friends and neighbors in UCLA to put those particular precepts together to help them. Okay? We've talked about the big stuff. We've talked about the little stuff. Let's talk about the middle stuff. You're hearing a lot about what you would call community scale solar. It's not new. Well, for some of you, it basically is. But for me, I've been dealing with community scale solar issues basically for 4 years minimum. And I'm so glad you guys are all taking notes. I can see the sparks flying from your pencils. God, I love you. What community scale solar is, it started 4 years ago, just after COVID was done with House Bill 400. Literally, you had a group of developers that said, we want to be able to put a project together. We want it at 5.1 to 49.9 megawatts, that range there, which means it was too big to be in an on-site interconnection agreement and that form of governance, and it was too small to be with the Power Siting Board and that form of government. It was right smack dab in the middle. Okay? It could be any type of generation asset. Literally, if they could establish a project and it was operational, then they had the ability in that local distribution circuit to solicit subscriptions for people basically to use that generation or have benefit from it. Okay? That's community scale. They were also designed basically to be done in urban, suburban, and rural areas. Also, this is a pilot project. A piece of legislation told investor-owned utilities to reserve 2,000 megawatts of capacity throughout their local distribution circuits and identify and place a number of those as pilots in urban, suburban, and rural areas. That's all it said. Everything else with regard to interconnection. Remember we talked about this over here? The rest of the stuff that you're involved in, it was moot. Many of the technical and safety and interconnection standards with regard to that, it was moot. Power marketing as a certified retail electric service provider that you use under customer choice, it was moot. The piece of legislation, and don't get me wrong, do we need power generation in all shapes and forms? Yes, we do. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But this piece of legislation was moot on a number of key issues and concerns.
Intentionally?
Well, I'll talk about that in a minute. Hang on. Well, I'm going to tell you this. What's interesting is nothing was done about that in the first General Assembly. House Bill 400 was assigned to the House Energy and Utility Committee. There were 6 hearings. Nothing came basically of that bill, and it died in the last General Assembly. However, this also happened in the last General Assembly. Lame duck, December 2 years ago, House Bill 510. It was a technical correction bill for township and county government. Because you know this, cities and villages have home rule authority. They can create whatever they want to through home rule, create their own rules, regulations, and precepts. Township, county, they rule by statute. They can only do what they are authorized to do by the Ohio General Assembly. In the technical corrections bill having to do with a number of things that they're involved in, there was a very brief amendment, and it said this, and I'm paraphrasing and quoting at the same time. It said, if an energy service provider wants to put a project in your township, and it does not come under Ohio Power Siting Board jurisdiction, we, quote, confer power siting authority to the local zoning appeals board or to county government. I started getting phone calls almost immediately from township trustees saying, these guys just showed up at our last township trustee meeting and they said, The substation is in your township. You need to approve this project now, because we want to start construction in the spring. Also, what's interesting is this, the way the law was written, when the amendment was written, you have to have zoning first and incorporate this into zoning before you have power siting authority. I need to tell you this, for counties and townships, zoning is an optional form of government. Miami Township's kind of lucky. It's one of about 35% of counties and townships that exercises basically zoning as part of their community planning. The other 65%, it doesn't. Which means this, when this piece of legislation passes, those folks in those counties and townships have no power siting authority to govern its development. You do if you take a look at some provisions which we'll talk about basically in a minute. What's also interesting is that's there. How big are these projects? A small project, if it's solar, around 10 megawatts, that's about 40 acres. One at 49.9 is around 320. Also, a lot of your township trustees have also found this out. They said, you know, if we approve a project today, before this law was enacted, are we able basically to benefit from the decisions made in that law? And the answer is no. Grandfathering is, in some cases, for some folks, a wonderful thing, and for others, it's hell on earth. That's what's going on, too. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you this. Within an hour's drive of here, I got a call last summer. I get a news line. Anything energy related in the eastern United States, I get a copy of it. A local newspaper talked about a local public hearing a group of township trustees were having on a community scale solar project the summer before last. I got a call at 3 o'clock in the afternoon from a friend. I've known him for 25 years through Farm Bureau, and he was a township trustee in that township. And he said, Dale, how you doing? I'm doing fine, Pete. What's going on? Well, we have a meeting tonight. And I said, yes, I know you do. He went, oh. So he had a number of questions. And I started answering them. And then I started asking him questions. And I heard, no, 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 no. Went, oh, okay. He said, well, can you do me a favor, Dale? I said, yeah. He says, I got to take a phone call right now. Can I call you back in 10 minutes? And I said, I'll be sitting right here waiting for you. And so I did. When he called me back, it was a conference call. He was on there with all 3 township trustees, 2 members of the zoning appeals board, and the county prosecutor. And we talked for an hour and a half. He says, what do we do about this? I said, there's no rule, regulation, process, law, governance, guarantees, protections for that type of development between utility scale and on-site. It's unexplored territory. Or what they're doing is legal? The answer is yes. But I also said this to them. I said, you guys were in FFA, right? And they said, yeah, you know that. Remember parliamentary procedure team? Yeah. Hey, go through the process basically, listen to what they have to say, ask those questions about rule, regulation, process, and law, and then put a motion on the table to table it until further consideration needs to be done. And that's what they did. That's what I've been showing a lot of township trustees. As a matter of fact, how many township trustees are in here? We're going to be talking about this. I know Heidi Fout personally. I've known her for 20-some years. She has me coming basically to your state meeting in January just to talk about this, okay? That's what's going on. And I'm also going to tell you this. That's been going on all over the state. in over 68 different counties, 68 of 88 of Ohio's counties, including down through here. A number of those companies have been coming and talking to you and your counterparts about, we're real nice guys. We want you to approve this project now so we can, hit the ground running. What about farmers and rural residents? I've talked to farmers who can see the Cincinnati skyline from their front yard all the way to Conneaut on Lake Erie in those 68 different counties. They've been contacted too about signing easements and lease agreements for this type of technology. I'm not saying it's wrong, but there's a lot of things with regard to rule, regulation, process, law that need to be discussed, need to be put basically on paper, need to be part of this process before people sign something. Welcome to energy development. That's going on too, including here. Okay? I've talked to a lot of your friends. I've talked to township trustees at their county township trustee association meetings, special meetings they've had, all under Ohio Sunshine Law, so this is not a secret discussion, answering their questions, taking a look at a number of things. A number of people are taking a look at this, because I'm going to tell you this, the way this law is written, it's not just about wind and solar. It's about any type of energy generation project that I showed there that meets those prerequisite requirements. You're going to be seeing a lot with regard to energy generation, transmission, and local distribution projects. You're going to be asked to take a look at and create plans and strategies on how this is going to be implemented and how it's going to benefit your community in some way, shape, or form. Which means your need to discuss, your need to take a look at a number of things, your need to advocate your position, both sides, is absolutely, positively huge. And welcome to my world. It got awfully quiet in the room. That's what's going on. Okay? I've already talked about that. I've talked about that card. Getting together with your township trustees, getting together with your local government, getting together with your zoning appeals boards, interested citizens, community groups, and stakeholders that need to get in a room this size to take a look at and create plans to accommodate a number of different technologies, a number of different programs and different things coming down the pike is incredibly huge. How are you going to do it? Well, I can say this. Remember Heidi with the Ohio Township Association sent you a very nice 2-page memo. I call it the beige paper because it was on beige paper. It was a skeleton. A lot of your friends, and you're nodding your head back here, you've seen it, that said, Heidi gave us a skeleton. We need meat on the bones. Where do we find it? Now, I'm going to tell you this. I'm not an attorney. But I keep a lot of attorneys and a lot of engineers very busy with my legal filings. You want ideas. You want to take a look at a number of things. I can get you that particular material. I suggest you take a look, some things you want to take a look at. I have a handout that I'll give you. There's some things in the Ohio Administrative Code, because I also say this, God has a sense of humor. Because in July of this year, the rules and regulations the Power Siting Board uses for its review of projects were all examined and revised. I had some folks basically up in Napoleon and Henry County saying, we need to have something now, Dale. Can you give us something? I sent them a copy of that draft material. And I called them 2 days later and said, is that workable for you? He says, oh my God, this is what we want. Because it's not 50,000 pages of gobbledygook. It's not something that keeps you awake at 3 o'clock in the morning when you read it. It's easily understandable, and it gives us some pretty good ideas about what we want to do. Well, I'm not saying you want to copy all of that verbatim from the Ohio Administrative Code, but if you read through it and you find some things there that would be unique and help you with regard to your unique wants, issues, and concerns in this township and in this county, it gives you a start. Things I want you to think about in this process. When they come to talk to you, you can tell them, that's great. We'd like to talk to you more, but here are our standards. Here's our plan. Here basically is our procedures in this township. If you want to bring a power generation project in some way, shape, or form, here's what you need to do to have our community consider it.
So what you're showing up here, is this some sort of source or book or?
Yep.
It's called Stakeholder Engagement.
Yes. I'm going to go through these first to give you an idea.
And when you're saying if you want to talk to us, here's our rules of engagement or whatever.
Yeah.
In what form are those rules of engagement coming? Is it in zoning resolution or just public?
You can do that. Now I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to give this to you right now. Here. We're going to have a test on these afterwards. Go ahead and pass these out. This is some of the stuff that we're going to look at. And it references the Ohio Administrative Code where you're going to be able to find it. Okay? But things you want to take a look at. If you're going to have a plan in place for your township or your county to address these particular issues, here's some things you might want to take a look at incorporating into your zoning and planning documents. Okay? First thing, application. You want to have a ready application from these guys. You want to make sure it's presented in a user-friendly format and you're going to have it open as a public record. Where's the copy going to be? Will it be at the local public library in Yellow Springs? Will it be on your website? Can a copy of it be here in this building for people who don't like the internet and don't want to download it? You want to make sure it's in a user-friendly format that when people read it, they can understand what is going on. You're going to be responsible for creating that particular process. Detailed step-by-step process to deem complete. You're going to tell them, this is what we're going to read, and we're going to tell you if we accept it, this is why. And if we don't accept it, this is why also. Public hearings and community outreach. You don't want to do this in secret, do you? You've already seen how that's happened in this county.
Just kidding.
You can write the rules. If you're going to do this, and if you're going to be considered to do this in our township, you're going to have a public outreach and awareness program and campaign that we are going to approve. There's going to be open house meetings. There's going to be mailings. There's going to be a speakers bureau. There's going to be a number of people can call to talk to a real person at any time with any questions regarding this. That's part of your process. That's what you want to have in there too. You want to take a look also, decision-making criteria. Legally, does this meet the standards of convenience, public need, and necessity? Does it benefit us as a local community? Does it benefit basically our communities in this state and in the PJM system all at the same time, but especially here? What standards are we going to have in place to basically say yes or no? You want to show them these are the rules of the road, this is what we're looking at. Factual, evidence-based, and they have the right of appeal. Remember, this is not a popularity contest. It's science and evidence-based. You have detailed rules on what you want to have in that application that you can read and ask questions on. These are the standards up front that we are going to use as a Township Zoning Appeals Board and others, working with our community stakeholders, taking a look at a number of things to say either yes or no. You need to have the rules down with regard to that. Other things. You identify economic, environmental, safety, and aesthetics that need to be addressed for your local community. You want to have them address that. You want to have them describe how they are going to address those needs for your community. Conflict resolution process. If you have a problem with something that they do you want to spend time in the local court of common pleas? As a matter of fact, when you take a look at the court of law for power siting, is it the court of common pleas? The answer is no. Utility scale, it's the power siting board itself. That's why when you had your local public hearings down here and there were 2 attorney examiners, you addressed them as what? Your Honor. Because they have the power of a judge. Believe it or not, welcome to power siting. Guess what you're going to have the power to do? That's part of the law. Which means if you have any potential conflicts, if people have issues, needs, and concerns that need to be addressed, you don't want them to spend a whole heck of a lot of money basically going to a local court of law who might say we have no jurisdiction on this issue. You want to put the rules, you want to put that process in place and make it the responsibility of the Zoning Appeals Board basically to address those particular issues. What are the rules? What are the prerequisite requirements? Who's going to help you with regard to that? How many people are in this room?
32 or something.
Well, you got 32 people who can help.
Said roughly. And there's a member, raise your hand if you're on the, now when you're saying your appeal boards, we call it the BZA, the Board of Zoning Appeals, so raise your hand if you're on our Board of Zoning Appeals. Which means this. That's going to be a tremendous responsibility for your local folks, but I'm going to tell you this. You are being conferred responsibility and you're compelled basically to be able to do it or needing to do it, which means you want to have written down, here's the rules that we are going to follow. And what I'm not understanding is, where are these rules? I mean, by what authority do we have these rules? Is this in the zoning resolution? These are all referenced in the Ohio Administrative Code. This is for the big stuff. Now then, I'm going to tell you this. Remember this. Is community scale zoning, is this basically law? Technically, it doesn't exist. Community scale solar, there is no rule, regulation, process, nothing is in place. The only thing in place is this, ladies and gentlemen. House Bill 510 conferred power siting authority on Township Zoning Appeals Boards and county government. That's the law. What's going to happen is this. Go ahead.
So, based off what Marilyn's saying, our county government, our township government can create this process so that when somebody says, you know, I want to build a 49.9 megawatt power generation facility on my 300 acres in my backyard, when it comes to the Board of Zoning Appeals, we have something to follow.
Ding, 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 ding.
Because right now we don't. It's also what we're saying.
Because this is where you are over a barrel. And very few people realize it. But I realized it 3 years ago because I work with this on a daily basis. As a matter of fact, let me tell you something. This is a learning curve. And yes, I'm way out here. Am I a genius? No, I've just been working on this quite a long time. Where are you guys at? All here. It's my job to give you information and material and guidance so you can come out here with me. Why? Because it's very lonely out here by myself. What I'm saying is this. This is what you have to take a look at. You have time right now. You have the ability to put these things together. What I'm very afraid of, what I've been telling a lot of your counterparts across this state is you have time to work with your community stakeholders to put this system and process together, especially if you have zoning. Because I tell you this, what you want to have happen is this. When this piece of legislation does get passed, and those guys come waltzing in and say, we're going to do a project here, what's your power siting provisions? You can tell them, here they all are, and this is what you're going to follow. That's what you're looking at.
And before that, we can't tell them anything.
That's correct.
But isn't there a step missing, Eli? Isn't it the zoning board that puts this into effect?
Zoning commission?
Well, I'm going to tell you this, friend. I'm so glad you asked that because you know the process. What I'm saying is this. Someone, be it the zoning appeals board, be it township trustees, be it a community of stakeholders, be a collaboration with all of you together, need to come up basically with a plan. I would also say this, your legal counsel for your township trustees is your county prosecutor, correct? Which means this, he should be able to show you the process that you should follow to go from the ideas and the concept and the verbiage here to do what needs to be done. There are several who have done that and I can refer you to. Okay? Good question, my friend, good question. But that's what I'm saying here is that also decommissioning and removal. At the end of a 30 or 40-year process, do you want to have an orphaned solar array in someone's basically field? No. Because let me tell you this, we need to learn by our history. Oil and gas production was done this particular way. When an oil and gas well basically left its service life, what did they do with them? They walked away. There's law in place saying that they have to decommission and remove them. Is there any teeth to it? No. There's 80,000 of those wells all over the place, and I help a lot of people with regard to that, which means this, you have the ability through your rules. Here's our rules and how we're going to put teeth in them. A lot of these companies are telling you, oh, you don't need to worry about that. We're going to put basically in the lease with the person that we're going to do a bond, which means the finance is going to be in place to remove it, just like you see with the Ohio Power Siting Board for the big stuff. But what they're not telling you is this. The only entity which can hold or enforce a bond is a government entity. Your township trustees need to be given and assume that responsibility. And you're going to tell them, you're going to have all the financing in place to take this thing down before we even get crowned. And every 5 years, you're going to come to see us, and we're going to revise that. Those are things you want to take a look at, different things, okay? Let's keep going here. I'm almost done. Other requirements. You know, it's interesting, the Power Siting Board's a huge umbrella organization. There's a number of environmental, aesthetic, socio-economic, archaeological, and other provisions that need to be addressed in a project that size. They take care and coordinate all that. As a matter of fact, they tell the company this, you're going to be working through our provisions, and also as part of our provisions, you need permits from the following authorities. All FERC, PUCO, and local interconnection permits with your utility are in place. We need to have those first before we say yes or no. All environmental permits with the ODNR, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the EPA, the state and federal level, USDA, NRCS. We need to have those in hand before we say yes. Farm drainage and soil conservation plans in place. Construction times, dust control, noise. They actually tell these people, this is going to be your construction schedule. This is when you can start in the morning. This is when you need to shut down at night. This is how you're going to take care of dust and ice control. This is how you're going to take care of noise. You're going to work with the local county engineer on road use, maintenance agreements, ingress and ingress. You might not have to be able to do it, but you're going to say to them, you're going to go to the county engineer, he's going to do the RUMA, and you're going to file it with us before we say yes or no. These folks basically are also going to have to get a number of permits with those state and federal agencies to protect a number of particular things. All you need to do is say, we require this as part of our plan. And every time they upgrade those plans, you're getting upgrades in that, which means you don't have to worry about it. That's part of this process too. Permit expiration and extension procedures. Give them a time limit. If you are given a permit by us, this thing has to be under construction, up and operational by X date. If it's not, you need to come back to us for an extension. And here's the rules that we follow different things. That's the kind of plan you need to have in place. Is that several hundred papers of legal gobbledygook? No. It's not 2 or 3 pages either. It's about 15 to 20. Okay? And you've had some townships do it. You've had some townships and county prosecutors work with regard to that. They've put plans in place that have been tailor-made for that particular community. All of them are as unique as a fingerprint. And they've had a number of folks with your knowledge, skill, expertise, and experience be part of that process. Again, welcome to Powerside.
Those plans are probably public also. There's a public record about them?
Yes,
So one could look at those to get your own suggestions.
that's correct. And I can show you where to get that. I can send you the hot list, I think. That's what I'm saying here. That's what's going on. That's what we talked about basically at the church in Xenia, and that's why Myron got a hold of me. You have some time right now to take a look at this, and I tell you this. You need to think not only with regard to solar and wind, but you need to think about other types of technologies besides that. Because I'm going to tell you this. Say if a solar project decides basically to withdraw its application. You have a large transmission circuit with enough generation capacity for a generation project. Take a look at what's within an hour of you and those energy particular needs. Take a look at your needs for this community. As a matter of fact, your community's needs for power generation is going up 400% since 1970. Take a look at the other technologies I showed you. Besides wind and solar, you have the opportunity to learn a lot of things with regard to solar right now because you've experienced it. You're also going to be taking a look at natural gas-fired turbine generation and pipeline infrastructure to fuel it. You're going to be taking a look at compact advanced nuclear. And there's already a permit within an hour's drive of here with regard to that. And another 3 that are going to be close. You're going to be taking a look at geothermal. You're going to be taking a look at hydrogen production. You're going to be taking a look at biomass properly done. A number of things, which also means this, my friend, your plan also needs to address those types of technologies too. Okay?
Does Senate Bill 52 include those, or is it just wind and solar?
Just wind and solar. Because you're thinking, we don't have to worry about this, we'll just get the county government to do an exclusion zone. SB 52 only applies to utility scale projects above 50 megawatts. And it only applies to wind and solar projects.
So this applies to only community, like what you're describing is just community-based
Yes.
power projects, and anything could be that size.
That's correct, which also means this, if you're basically going to want to rely on SB 52 provisions, it is not going to help you. Okay? That's why I'm here too. I'm not trying to frighten everybody of different things, but I'm saying you have an opportunity here to start a discussion, to start collaboration, to start taking a look and putting things together, start planning in room this size, that if and when 18 to 24 months from now, if and when House Bill 197 becomes law with all the provisions that need to be in there, and those guys come into your room, you can say, okay, we will discuss this with you, but these are our rules in this township that you are going to adhere to with regard to this application process. You want and need to have them down. Because I'm going to tell you this, you already have lawsuits at the Ohio Power Siting Board level for right of appeal and right basically for remotions and rehearing it on the Supreme Court where decisions are going to be made. Do you want to roll the dice and basically attempt to take a look at that risk? I don't know, I can't tell you, but I'm saying this. You are going to see these technologies come to Miami Township and to Yellow Springs and to Greene County. You need to be basically ready to address them, okay? That's why I'm here. That's why I work the Farm Bureau. And again, congratulations, welcome aboard. I'm glad you're here. Go ahead, Mary.
So where we are now as a township is the trustees have asked the zoning commission to consider an amendment to our resolution regarding, well, we didn't call it community scale solar, but now we know it, that's its name, the middle stuff. That's where we are. Where does this fit in? Is that what we're asking them to do, or is this something that belongs to the BZA, or something that we adopt as a board?
I tell you this, that's discussions you're going to have to do, because I would say this, for those people who are responsible for that resolution, you've taken some pretty good notes here. Does that resolution basically give you the idea or the options where you want to examine this, put together a citizens committee, and put some of these rules and things together for them to consider? I don't know. That's something that you as a community, as Marilyn has rightfully said, you have to make some decisions about where you want to proceed. What is your next step? Okay? I've given you kind of a roadmap. I haven't told you which steps you need to take. I'm going to leave that up to you basically to decide what you want to do. Okay?
But do the rules lie in the zoning resolution or not?
The rules
Do I
confer, I say this is what it says in House Bill 501, and this is what it says in the legislation, and now says in the Ohio Administrative Code. If a power generation project is not under Ohio Power Siting Board jurisdiction, that's 50 megawatts or above, we confer power siting authority, the Township Zoning Appeals Board, and County Commissioners. Power siting authority is conferred upon you. If you take a look at the Ohio Administrative Code, this is power siting authority. You have the ability to use and shape this to create your plans going forward.
So if it's a permitted use in our township, you're recommending that our commission put together rules similar to really what the OPSB uses to decide on their applications? Because these are the OPSB.
Those are the OPSB rules, because I tell you this, that's the only standard rules we have in place. Now, I'm not telling you to take that verbatim and make them yours, because I tell you this, remember this, Power Siting Board is working on something applicable in 88 counties all at one time. You're working in Miami Township. What's applicable to you was probably going to be just a little different than what's applicable to everything statewide. You need to have the power and the ability to discuss, fashion, and create. I'm saying use that as the model. I've had a lot of township trustees read through those and they go, you know, this makes a heck of a lot of sense. I think we could use this here. And at the next planning meeting, it says, I read this. I think this is something we need to take a look at. It might not be the verbiage that we want to use, but we want to use something similar. Okay? Also, too, if you want to talk to other township trustees and zoning appeals boards who have done this in the area, I can at least give you some names and some numbers of people to call.
I'm a bit confused here, and I like this discussion, but you keep saying zoning appeals boards.
Yes.
I think, the way I'm thinking, it should be the zoning board
Well,
comes up with this.
think about that, because I tell you this, the law says zoning appeals boards, which means legally you're going to have to make some connection with regard to that. But you want to be involved, right? There's nothing wrong with
My
it.
next question is to the zoning board, because I was at one of their meetings about a year ago, and they started discussing this. I just was wondering, how far along are you guys? Greg?
We've had lots of discussions.
Well, I think a great idea would be to get some of these already enacted township.
If it is not a permitted use, do we even need it? I'll just be devil's advocate. If it's not a permitted use in our township, do we need to have this?
That is something I tell you this. Your next step, besides talking with me, have a meeting with your county prosecutor. And if he, and God bless county prosecutors, I really love working with them because many of them are top notch. All of them are top notch because you've elected them. But what did you elect them to do? Fight crime, right? Which also means this. I've had a number of county prosecutors. As a matter of fact, I'm meeting with one on Monday. He's going, I see the need to do this. We're going to sit down and we're going to talk. And I need you to recommend and refer me to other members of my legal community who can help me in my township and county government do this. Do you have anybody you can recommend? And yes, I have several. Okay? And also, please remember this, if he retains one of them, I get no kickback, no remuneration, no free lunch. That's between you and them, but there's other people who can help them too. But I think you're understanding this, because I tell you this, am I saying this is all clear as smoke right now? Probably not. You're probably going to have a number of other questions, but at least you're getting down that particular path. And as you need to talk about and have other questions answered, you give me a call and I can get you a hold of some people who can help. Because I'm going to tell you this, knowledge is power. And there's some people out there who just love it when you're confused. And this is what, I have some townships call me going, this guy just showed up. Help. This guy hasn't shown up at you guys yet. You've got some time to take a look at it. Yes, sir.
What I hear is that there's lots of information available and lots of sources to gather more information, and you're one of the ways of gathering those sources of information. What I'm not hearing is what advice can you give for developing a process for you gathering and using that information to create
God, I love
these
you.
standards?
Well, I can tell you this. I've given you information. I'm leaving that up to you. What processes, what experience do you have? How have you worked your zoning and zoning appeals in this township in years past? Do that. Start with that and make adjustments if you see you need to. Because I'm going to tell you this. Each township is unique as a fingerprint. They all have general guidelines, but they all use them in such a particular way.
How fast does this process need to take place?
I'm going to tell you this. Probably about 18 to 24 months. Okay? It's not going to take place overnight, but I'm going to tell you this too. Is 18 to 24 months a lot of time? No. Because if this bill on community solar is passed, the first provisions basically are to say there's an order goes out from the Public Utilities Commission telling the investor-owned utilities to put their interconnection guidelines and rules in place. That's going to take some time. Power marketing, certified retail electric service provider provisions. That's going to take some time. They're not going to come to you, but they will come to you and go, we're going to do this. We're thinking about being here in about 18 months. We want you to approve the project now so we can hit the ground running. Okay? You do have some time to work on it. Is that a lot of time? No, but it's not, I need to do this tomorrow. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Sir, you have said that you know of townships and counties who have good processes in place to which you might refer us. Would you mention a couple?
Let's do this, ma'am. I would rather have your county folks basically do that, because when I asked them basically regarding that, they said they want to work official to official, okay?
All right.
So I would say this, talk to your local government officials and say, see if you can find somebody. We'll go that way. You notice I don't give lists of attorneys out or lists of counties and townships, because all of them are working through this process. All of them want to stay, I wouldn't say confidential, but they want to be able to work together on a number of particular things. They want to have control over this process. Very good question, but I promised a number of them that it would be another of their counterparts in the county who will contact them. Okay?
All right.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
It seems like before you can get to rules and regulations, everybody needs to understand energy demand and the future of energy demand, and those technologies that you first brought up, before you can say, here's how we want that to go. Don't people need to understand the science and the future of what energy demand is going to pressure?
Yes, because I'm going to tell you this. Have me down for another briefing. I work with FERC, NERC, and PJM because this is going on at the same time. It's interesting when it comes to generation, transmission, local distribution. And this is going to be a quick elevator answer, but I understand where you're coming from, and I'm glad you asked the question. Is that we are in the period of the most abrupt change since many of these things came online in the 1920s. We're doing a balancing act here because coal and nuclear are being retired at a feverish pace. You drive down Route 7 on the Ohio River on both sides of the river, there were 27 coal-fired generation facilities there 15 years ago. There are 3 left. That's it. What's replacing them? Natural gas-fired turbine generation, wind, solar. You're also seeing smaller, compact generation facilities further out in the transmission. In the 20th century, you got all your electricity from very large, centralized generation facilities a couple of hundred miles away. You're going to find out that you're going to be getting it from a number of facilities within your neighborhood or circuit. Are you going to need that? The answer is yes, because it's a balance right now. Your need for electricity is going up 400%. A number of those large facilities are gone. Where are you going to get it? You're going to be taking a look at and creating plans to take a look at natural gas-fired turbine generation, compact nuclear, wind, solar, geothermal, battery backup, and placing them someplace. As a matter of fact, what's interesting is this. In PJM, it's called the worst possible case scenario. The whole system has to be designed for an adverse event. That adverse event is usually a winter cold snap that is so cold that it's usually somewhere around 24 degrees below zero at the chill factor. And consequently, that weather event comes once every 30 years. And during that weather event, basically, 1/3 of generation is running, turning, and burning. The other third basically is in reserve, and the other third basically is in maintenance and comes on hot once it's fixed. That day is only supposed to happen once every 30 years. It's happened 6 different times in the last 5. Most recent was Christmas Eve 2 years ago. At 4:30 in the afternoon, I'm sitting there on my cell phone and I'm looking at PJM and I'm looking basically at energy standards. And at 4:20, everything in PJM was committed. All active power generation on the bulletin board and all reserve. At around 4:15, they found 40 megawatts basically of hydro from the Niagara Mohawk in Canada and brought it down through the transmission system and energized it. That kept us basically from doing rolling blackouts. Because let me tell you this, I'm on the resource advisory boards with some of those folks, and when your local utility has trucks out there and there's no lines down, they're sitting there. There's a fuse about this big in your substation. You pull that out, it deactivates everything, and you have a large vise that pulls it out. You had trucks at every one of those substations, of guys sitting there holding the fuse in place, ready to yank it, and another guy's on the walkie-talkie waiting for the order to come in.
To prevent a rolling blackout. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. That's what's going on with a number of folks. That's what's going on in your community, which means this. You're going to have to take a look. I said this is not black and white. You're going to have to take a look at some power generation technology that you want to have in your local transmission circuit and your local distribution circuit to address those particular needs. Because you're tearing up some of it down, you're trying to build some of it up, and if you don't do it and time it just right, you're going to have problems, and we're there right now.
And so are there communities that are actively writing this zoning? So we have zoning language that's about wireless towers that uses this siting language and what to do after it's gone. That kind of language exists in our zoning language now. Are there communities that are writing language to encourage specific types of power generation? So I'd rather wind than solar, solar than wind, or small-scale nuclear versus...
What I've seen and what I suggest they do is this. They've written it for any type of power generation that fits those requirements. That way you have selection and purpose and interest with regard to that, and you do not have to make that decision, basically. You don't have to pick winners and losers. Okay?
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of a 5 to 49 on the higher scale megawatt location close by? What that facility looks like?
There's one south of Dayton that uses a series of jet engines. That is a peaking plant for Dayton Power and Light for South Dayton. It's at 50 megawatts, and it's only called online when the power demand is such in that local distribution circuit that they need it. See, this is also a new type of technology, because you hear about peaking stations. There are several. They're all natural gas fired throughout western Ohio, but they're relatively few, because until about 5 or 10 years ago, we never had to address this scenario. So I can't tell you exactly where they are at. Okay? But I'm also telling you this, you have a number of communities are taking a look at, this is Yellow Springs, this is Miami Township. I have townships right now, people advocating state policy and federal policy saying this: if we accommodate a power generation facility within our local distribution network, that's going to energize the system. In times of emergency, that's a very valuable asset, which also means this: when they put the pecking order together of what circuits they're going to shut down first and rolling blackouts, we're at the bottom of the list because we have a generation facility in our local distribution circuit. That's how some communities are taking a look at it too. Okay? But you're asking a lot of good questions, and I tell you this too, that's a whole different discussion that we can have with regard to that. I can bring people in that you want to take a look at with regard to it. What I'm saying is this is what's happening, is that you have folks who are looking at your community to put this type of community scale technology in. And you want to have governance in place to tell them, if you're thinking about doing it here in Miami Township, here are our rules, and this is how it's going to be done. Okay?
Is there a density rule to a township, like the energy company comes in, puts in their 300 acres, and they have another 300 acres half a mile away? And have 5 community things in one?
No, what's really nice about, bye guys, I knew they were all leaving at 8 o'clock. What's also interesting too is this, in this piece of legislation, no, that kind of density, it says if you place one of these in this area, there has to be setbacks of so many miles before you're allowed to do another complementary plant to it. You can't have these all over Kingdom Come.
So it's miles rather than feet.
That's correct. But will that be changed in legislation? It might. Is that something you want to talk about in your planning for Miami Township? Possibly. You took a lot of nice notes there. Any other questions?
Can the Board of Zoning Appeals for the township, which apparently has the authority for a project in this range, can it say, we will not approve any such project until we have had a process and made our rules? Meaning, our rule at the moment is moratorium until such time as we're ready to have rules to talk to you about.
Yes.
Is that a legal thing and the prosecutor can deal with that?
Yeah, because I tell you this, you're putting a plan in place, you're saying, we're not going to make a decision until these prerequisite requirements are done.
So that is a prosecutable
That's
point of view,
that's a point of view that you can put basically into a resolution, yes.
But you have to have it. I mean, you can't just say, well, that's what we want to do,
No,
but we don't have a resolution stating that.
because you're going to need to have this as a matter of public record. You're going to need to show it.
So we need public record.
Yeah.
Is the township eligible to receive, I use the word royalty, from the amount of power produced?
Texas.
Remember this is a merchant plant,
Taxation.
and consequently, anything is negotiable. If this was a utility scale one, you have payment in lieu of taxes program, and there's so much money earmarked for the township that accommodates that. Do we see it here? No, which means this. Can your rules say with regard to that is that if you're going to do it here, this is what the royalty provision is going to be, or this is the money or the economic payment you're going to make to this township if it's here, and base it so much with regard to megawatt capacity.
You get a percentage or something of what they do, and then maybe an upfront payment for the number of acres there's.
Well, remember this, everything and anything is negotiable. Very good question. It's making you think about it, isn't it?
Well, there's got to be some benefits besides
Yeah.
if it's going to go.
Any other questions? I got
One more.
Okay, bud.
Do you see this, what I hear you saying is, the townships that get their act together first are going to be in a good position, and the ones that don't are going to be in a bad position. Is that what we really want? That kind of a battle and hierarchy, and with winners and losers?
Well, you've put that together quite accurately. Because I'm going to tell you this, there are some folks I've talked to in interested party discussions saying, you don't need to do this and you don't need to do that. And I said, you don't understand. I've been involved with power siting before you were born on some of these. But yeah, part of this, basically, the way that piece of legislation is written, there's a lot of things that are moot in there that need to be done, and they're not even talking about it. Don't get me wrong, because I'm going to tell you this. If you Google me, yes, I'm former president of the Green Energy Ohio Board of Directors. Why was I there? I shared a lot of policy and a lot of farming viewpoint with those folks. I was their policy chairman. Now you know why. They talked to me about we really need to do this, and we really need to get this done, and the heck with those country bumpkins who are township trustees, they don't need to be fooling around with this. I'm going, time out. If this was coming to your neighborhood, what are some things you want to make sure, guaranteed provisions, protections, things need to be done?
I want to make sure I understood your question, Richard. You're saying that those who get things in place would be the winners and those who don't would be the losers. How are you defining winner and loser?
Meaning that people will get projects that they don't want because they don't have any regulations.
But would need there be a loser if we all define our regulations?
Well, if we all do, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about a statewide program or a countywide
Yeah, I know,
program. We're talking about individual townships.
Oh, I thought you were pitting them against each other.
No, not pitting
Okay.
against each other.
Okay,
No.
Gotcha, I understand.
But you can see that too, because I'm going to tell you this, there's a reason why, these are supposed to go up in towns, villages, and in local areas, rural areas, open space. Do you see a lot of this discussion basically with city fathers? The answer is no, but you see a lot of it with townships.
The playing field isn't level to start with. For example, we have major transmission lines running through Miami Township, so we're a desirable location to put any kind of power generation. All right? Lots of other townships, nobody wants to build a power generation there because there are no lines built. That's a much larger investment.
And now you know why basically you're taking a look at connecting these into a local distribution circuit where interstate transmission lines of that size are not used.
If a developer had PJM interconnect approval for utility scale solar development, and that solar development does not happen, can they repurpose that interconnect approval from PJM for a community scale project?
They can't repurpose it, but what's going to happen is this. The company that has the permit is probably going to relinquish it or cancel it, which means that capacity is open and another company can do its own application for rights of interconnection.
So it costs them a lot of money to get that. When you say relinquish that, do you mean sell it?
You'll have to give it up.
They just have to give it up.
When you get your rights of interconnection, you have X number of years basically to have your plan online. You have a queue number, which means you're in the queue, and they're expecting you to put generation into that system by such and such a date.
Can a company who plan to put, sorry to interrupt you, plan to put an industrial scale above 50, could then they change their mind and use their interconnect to do a community basis?
I've seen that done.
Wait, I missed the question.
No, because I've seen, she said this, if the company basically was going to do 50 megawatts or above and had an interconnection permit, could they change it and do less than 50? And the answer is yes, and I've seen that done.
In multiple.
Pardon?
In multiples.
No.
How is that different than?
Well, my question is, if you're saying that they've changed it, but they had one that would do 300, we'll say, can they do multiples to match the 300? So you're saying only one hookup, and if they choose to go 50, then they can do that one time.
And the reason they did it that way is because they were no longer under the jurisdictional authority of the Power Siting Board.
So I think that sounds very similar to what I was asking, so I'm trying to figure out what the difference is.
What were you
Well, I was saying if they took that interconnect for their utility scale project's not working out anymore, can they use that then for a community scale project?
They're going to have to file a motion to amend that permit with FERC
Okay.
to bring it down to that particular level.
And they'd be producing less.
Yeah.
As a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals, I'd really appreciate the zoning commission to come up with some rules about this. So it's not brought to us without just a willy-nilly me deciding this. I'm appointed and volunteered as opposed to voted in. Well, everyone is a volunteer. I mean, it would be nice to have a larger discussion about it in a zoning commission
Well, I'm glad you're saying that,
meeting
Chris.
session. If that's where the rules are defined, that then I'm going to follow when an appeal comes our way.
And now you know why basically you've had this presentation, because I tell you this, I should have said this also, if you leave with more questions than answers, at least you know basically this is what's coming down the line. I'm going to leave it up to you how you take the next steps forward. I've introduced the process with you, and I've introduced what has happened. I've told you basically that this is coming down the pike and you're going to have to act in some way. I'm leaving it up to you with your knowledge, skill, and expertise to create that particular plan. And how much did I say I was going to pay you to say all that?
It was at
But
least
anyway.
a small-scale nuclear facility.
So House Bill 501 passed, gave townships the ability to, I don't know what to write.
It conferred them, if they have zoning, power signing authority.
So how will, if House Bill 197, if it's approved or voted into law, how will it change the environment that we're in now? And I also have a follow-up question about the max. You know, it's supposed to be from 5.1 to 49.9, but then I saw your comment about max 10 to 20 megawatts, so I'm confused.
Okay, hang on. I would say this is what's going to happen, and I've seen this happen with a lot of, remember the township I told you about that I had a meeting with last summer on the phone? There's a number of those companies going to them and saying, you really don't need to worry about this and different things because FERC, NERC, and PJM, we got very black and white rules. This is what we're going to do in that farm field. But what they're not telling you is that's only 30% of the power side. You needed to address the other 70%. I've already had, what you don't want to do is this, and this is what a lot of township trustees are now becoming kind of scared, because if they approve a project right now, sight unseen, or without provisions of the law in place, you've grandfathered something in very, very quickly. You've literally written them a blank check to do what they want to do.
That's if you approve the project.
Today.
You set a precedent.
Yeah. Farmers are doing that right now too. The number of farmers I've had at kitchen table meetings with, and the first thing I say to them is, this is a merchant plant function. Eminent domain does not apply. Don't sign anything.
So what does, if House Bill 197 is enacted, what does it change about the current environment? What does it do?
If 197 is passed, it makes this type of project, community scale projects, legal.
They're currently not.
They're currently not. Technically, there is no rule, regulation, process in law accommodating this type of technology.
What would anything above a 5?
But you said there are some.
Yeah, it's still allowed to happen, so what do you mean by legal?
Legal?
Yeah.
Community scale solar projects are not legal in the state of Ohio right now. You can't create and permit one between 5 and 49.9 under those particular provisions. Okay? When that passes, it is legal. They're allowed to do it. They're going to come to you and say, we want to do it in your township because the substation is here. You have power signing authority. I need you to approve our project now so we can start construction.
And if there are no rules, then the Board of Zoning Appeals has a difficult time arguing what it would like to have in place.
Or we just get to decide the rules, right?
Yeah,
We can decide the rules too.
that's correct.
Yeah, but then you might have to do it all in a
But when
rush.
it's brought to us, we can decide the rules, right? Like any appeal.
Yeah, but there's no rules established yet.
But this would be like the,
It's just in ad hoc, you make it up then.
we could make it up then.
And what happens if you forget something?
Oh, no, that sucks. That's why I would really like to take care of it ahead of time.
There you go.
It's your owner, Eli.
Oh, yeah.
Why did they put into the bill about
Well, let me pick
I'm on the board.
Okay.
Zoning Commission.
Why did they put commissioners into the bill? Why did they bypass? They've got the township trustees, and they've got the Board of Appeals.
because there are some counties where the township trustees have not exercised zoning, but the county has. And they had to address that issue there. Okay?
This keeps it open for you to set the laws, where in some counties, this is the.
There are some
committee
counties
does
that have countywide zoning. No townships have zoning, but the county does. And there's the vast majority of them that do have zoning, it's at the township level. They want to take care of both. But this is also, it's been kind of interesting. I get calls from township trustees all the time, and it goes something like this. They're going, you know, Dale, I'm a township trustee in this township. I've done it for 30 years. I don't get paid much. I'm a volunteer. I do this for civic duty. I'm in charge of dust and ice control. I work with the county engineer on ditch maintenance, putting a culvert in, getting a road repaired. I make sure our park basically is mowed. I open a grave or two in the township cemetery. The only contentious thing that I do is under Ohio law, I'm the mitigator on the line fence dispute between two neighbors. And now you want me to do power sighting with all of this? How in the name of God am I going to do that? Now you know basically why I'm here and what I've been doing for the last 7 years.
Here's the thing that I've found over the whole years that we've been in this thing, is that they have preyed on the ignorance of most people. Everybody, not most people, all of us, is because we don't have the knowledge. You're the only one that has the knowledge to a degree. And what I've experienced is they take that knowledge they have and they use it to their advantage. Just like you said, it's like a...
Well, I said, knowledge is
very
power.
aggressively.
Yeah. Knowledge is power.
Yep. I'm not saying world, it's just that's the way that the industry was.
Now you know why I'm here, right? And now you know why I talk to you, right? So I'm going to tell you this. You're one leg up on a lot of other people in the state of Ohio.
So if somebody comes and offers and you say, well, I'm worried about this, and they say, well, we'll follow all the rules of the Ohio Power Siting Board, so you don't need to worry about it. You're saying, it sounds like to me that they might say that to you, but you don't have any prosecutable way of making them do that unless it is in your lease agreement, because it's a commodity situation, not a law situation.
Let me say this. Leases as a legal animal are a contract between an individual landowner and a company. As a matter of fact, you have no authority on leases. Let me handle that between a landowner and them. You can concentrate on your power siting authority basically to do that, okay? And I'm going to tell you this. You might read through the entire Ohio Administrative Code on power siting and say, I'm very comfortable with that, let's adopt it. You might say, you know, this is a little too big, a little too harsh, a little too complex for us basically to handle. I think we need to do it this way. You need to have that option to be able to take a look at that too. And I understand and appreciate that, okay? What's very dangerous is this, and I saw this done in Fairfield County a year and a half ago. 3 attorneys walked in with a developer. The township was zoned. They said, the switch yard, the substation is in your township. We're going to do a community scale solar project. You have power siting authority. You were just given that 2 months ago by the General Assembly. It went into effect here the first part of March. You need to approve this project now so we can start construction on this piece of ground that we have rented 2 months from now. We have no zoning ordinances. Well, that's all right. 3 notebooks were given to them. Just adopt this. We already wrote it up for you. You should read it.
Did they adopt it?
No.
Okay.
They got
That's good.
They got a hold of me and said, I can't believe these guys did this. And I'm going, I can. But no. Okay? I'm not saying your job is going to be easy or whatever, but it does need to be done, and you are going to be planning on how you want to be able to do it. Okay? That's why I'm here.
You have to have something on the books.
You're
You
going to
need to get something, and you better make amendments to it as if you want to add something to it down the road when you get a little more knowledgeable.
That's right.
Have something started.
Remember, this is not static, it's dynamic, but you need to get something on the book.
Because you can't simply say, we don't allow that here.
No, that's not going to work.
You can't simply say, it's not a permitted use here, sorry. That doesn't work because,
You're going to have somebody challenge that.
I have to defend it. If we say that, we have to defend it.
That's correct.
And then they're going to say, where's your rules that would defend it?
Yeah.
Where's your
Evidence-based. Okay, one other thing. If they come in and want to do this, it has to be in a properly zoned area, correct?
That depends on how you determine what it's going to be. Okay? A couple other things that I'm going to leave you. You're hearing a lot about agrivoltaics. I've said a lot about agrivoltaics. They talk about doing farming underneath the solar panels. Gosh, I've gotten my rump in trouble a lot of times. I made national news because I said, it's interesting. Where did the term come from? It didn't come from agriculture. It came from them. Number two, they want you to do farming practices underneath here. Let's talk about machinery. Let's talk about crops. Let's talk about labor. Let's talk about storage. Let's talk about logistics. You want to do animal husbandry? Let's talk about controlled fencing. Sheep are the only thing that you can put in there underneath the design you have. What about cattle? What about horses? What about everything else? And this has got to be profitable, basically, for the farmer to do it. And by the way, you need to have a residence in there. Residence? Yeah, because someone's going to be there 7/24/365 to take care of it. They better live there. That's something you need to take a look at, too. I talk to a lot of people, basically, that think that agrivoltaics is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I also remember this, 98% of the folks basically don't know anything about agriculture. Okay? I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying it's going to be a lot different. I don't need to do that. This is also going to happen. You're going to hear a lot about carbon sequestration projects and hydrogen production projects. Could you see them here? The answer is yes, which is also part of this process. And I'd say this. I invite you to practice agriculture's leadership position. And this is what it is. We actively listen to and understand everyone's issues, needs, and concerns, and encourage them to be involved in the discussion process. I hope I got that out to you basically today. Be patient. Many have parts of the answer. It's just too bad that many don't know what the questions are yet. Respect everyone's opinion. I really appreciate you've respected everyone's opinion. I was told we have people here with conflicting viewpoints. You've collaborated a lot together. I really appreciate that. To truly serve and implement effective solutions, realize that many of us in public policy cannot afford to have an opinion. Or I'd say this, if you're looking formally, things to think about, goals and objectives for your group. You want to coordinate efforts involving the developer, government and regulatory agencies at the township, county, state, and in some cases the federal level. Economic development and regional development authorities and community groups need to be at this table. You want to create and develop projects that address environmental and safety concerns, consider aesthetic needs, and provide economic benefits. And you want to create a jurisdictional and logistic balance before we all sit in the cold and in the dark. But welcome basically to
22nd century.
the issue. I appreciate this, and I'd say this, let's continue the conversation. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just a citizen, grandma, great-grandma, lived in Ohio my whole life, remember what big energy did in the strip mining in southeastern Ohio and the horror that I witnessed there.
Okay.
Don't trust big energy one iota. And my main fear through all of this, I'm very glad you're here and explaining all of this, because I think we sorely need to understand what is being done and what we can do and what the options are. But I have to ask you, as a citizen, a very new citizen, but why not have the panels on the big shopping centers and the roofing?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. You're seeing legislation being developed to do that. You're seeing it in other states. I'm also going to tell you this. Technically, if you're thinking, well, we can just put this on everybody's rooftop and connect it up, technically, that would be incredibly expensive and is not able to be done. The amount of electricity that you need at such a megawatt level means you need to do this in a multiplier effect. Remember when we were all in junior high and we were all 7th grade, we all had batteries and we hooked batteries up in series and in parallel?
I don't remember this.
Series. Solar panels are hooked up in series. They're hooked up one after the other because you get the huge megawatt load you need for power generation for tens of hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses by that type of wiring them up. You need them all in one particular area to be able to do that.
What
We need to be
about
about interconnects as well.
Yeah.
Well, just not thinking about feeding the grid particularly. If I am a Mr. Shopping Center owner, couldn't I save an awful lot of money after my investment was paid for just to have this on my own property to satisfy my needs and make shade on my parking lot when it's 90 degrees weeks in a row?
It's very workable with regard to that. We need basically to convince people to do that, but I also need to tell you this. At that particular level, maybe 1 out of every 3 homes, farm, or businesses has a load profile or a usage pattern to be able to accommodate a load at that level, at that location.
Well, also, the other thing, you're talking about, when extreme weather hits and we're in bad shape. But can we generate enough power in our own homes to keep our refrigerator and our computers going?
Yes.
It all depends on how much you use. It all depends on what you invest in with regard to a power wall or battery backup system. I've seen some homes and farms that are able to do that, and I've seen others based on their usage pattern and their load requirements. The answer is no. It all depends on the individual location.
Would we be able to have that and not have it declared illegal because we weren't paying into the grid?
Well, that's why you have an effective interconnection agreement between you and your public utility. That's the protection agreement which allows you to do that.
Or you're off-grid entirely, then you don't have to deal with them.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. There's like 6 guys in Iowa that we'll talk to in about 12 years. They called it guerrilla solar. They said, we don't need to do this. We're going to do this ourselves. And they put their own systems in. They all still had it interconnected into the local electric circuit. There was a power failure. There was no automatically switch coming off with regard to that. And you had 3 linemen. We went basically to the substation.
Didn't know that was coming at them.
No. Manslaughter is a...
Yes, that's why you
which
have
means
to,
this.
have to be off-grid if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Not interconnected.
No, which means this. Rule, regulation, law, process. I understand where you're coming from, Mom. I really appreciate your questions because I'm going, that's all. I taught at Miami University. I taught that. It took me like 3 lectures to get through that. But no, you're fine.
Early in my life, I've done without electricity.
And let me ask you this.
Frighten me.
Which county did you come from?
Summit.
Okay.
But I've lived here for 30 years.
All right. Well, see, I'm a child of Appalachia. On my father's side of the family's been farming on the same ground for 8 generations in Knox County. My mother's family lost their ground in 1943. And picture this D6 Caterpillar came up over the hill one day, and my great-grandfather Stephen's there, and the guy tore through basically the cow pasture, and he says, what the same are you doing?
Yeah.
He says, Steve, took a look here. Your father in 1888 signed this coal lease that
Yeah.
allows us to use any technology to get to it. We're going to strip mine, but don't worry, we're going to put the ground back when we're done. You won't
yeah.
recognize it.
Yeah,
That piece
that's
of
what I'm
ground,
remembering.
that piece of ground is in Woodbury Wildlife Area.
Yeah. Yeah,
I can talk about strip mine ground.
yeah,
All this technology stuff, there's a negative impact no matter what you do. We can talk about green energy, but it devastates another part of the planet just as equal.
Well, I take a look at this. I'm going to tell you this, is that, and I said this to you, Marion, when you were warming me up, is when someone says to me, we're the good guys, we're green and renewable energy, and I'm going, the only difference between you and the guys basically from
Yeah.
coal and whatever is the technology you're carrying.
yeah. Same bunch of monkeys. Yeah.
Same tactics.
She's old back, doesn't she?
Same questions you need to ask. Yes. But, well, I appreciate your time. It's about 10 till 9. My car turns into a pumpkin at midnight. I got to get home.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.